are going to win a record equaling 16th flag. How sweet it is! Collingwood win the grand final.
Saturday, September 30th, 2023. The Brisbane Lions lay on the MCG turf, devastated, in shock, in disbelief. Their first grand final in 19 years has come to this. Collingwood exact their revenge for the back-to-back heartbreaks of 02 and 03, and Chris Fagan's men limp off the MCG and into the rooms, potentially blowing their one chance at glory. 356 days later, they have come from absolutely nowhere to turn the finals on their head and get their shot at redemption. How did they do it? Is this real? Am I just hallucinating? The money's just come out of our account for the tickets, so I'd certainly hope this is real. This is the story of how the Brisbane Lions saved their season after it seemed almost dead. The journey back to the big dance started almost immediately. Not even 3 days had passed before the team reviewed the entire game in painstaking detail. Each player was asked if there was a moment in the game they'd like to have back. A fumble, a missed goal, a brutal 50-metre penalty, having an umpire with a slightly louder whistle. Brisbane made a point of processing this loss well. Fags himself said that almost immediately after the game, and with that out of the way, the boys got stuck into a big preseason. All eyes were on opening round against Carlton. They recruited, trained, and coached towards getting back there to get another chance to finish the story. The preliminary final rematch started off almost perfectly for the Lions, arguably playing some of the best footy they have played in almost 20 years, eventually finding themselves leading by 46 points. Everything was perfect. The Lions looked unstoppable. They had picked up where they had left off.
There's your siren! For the first time in more than a decade, the Blues have beaten Brisbane in Brisbane. What a game of football.
And then it collapsed in spectacular fashion. Carlton got their win back after letting Brisbane come back from a 30-2 deficit in the previous year's final. Brisbane now starts the season 0-1 and missing their star, their best on ground in the prelim and the granny, Gideon Coleman. All is not lost though. Brisbane head to Perth to take on Fremantle, a very winnable game. Things are looking good early, and then another blown lead. Luckily, not as big this time, but still crushing. Brisbane is now 0-2, and now they have an injury cloud over their dual Brownlow medalist. Thanks to the absolute farce that is opening round, Brisbane get a much needed bye to reset. They look towards Collingwood at the Gabba, the grand final rematch. Things look promising at half time, but it's not to be. Brisbane are now 0-3. They look lost, out of sync. Perfect timing for a bunch of hack journalists to take a big footy rumour and run with it on national television. Brisbane head to Norwood Oval and finally get their first win of the season. But the external pressure is mounting. They face Melbourne at the MCG. The last time Brisbane played Melbourne at the MCG, it was a monumental disaster that left fans in disbelief and anger.
That's a mark! That's a mark! That's a fucking mark! Ah! That's a fucking mark, you cunt. What the fuck? Ah, fucking hell, bro.
Brisbane was fighting for their season, and if they wanted to salvage their shot at redemption, they would have to exercise their MCG demons, no pun intended, and do what they have only been able to do once in almost 10 years. The odds were against them. Their backs were against the wall, and it would take their absolute best to... Oh. Okay, they pumped them. Sweet. Brisbane is starting to turn a corner. They look like their old selves again. They go back to the Gabba to take on the Geelong Cats full of confidence, ready to finally get their season back on track and oh dear God. Oh sweet Jesus. Yeah, we might be in a bit of trouble here. The rain and Brisbane's occasional habit of not being able to hit the side of a skyscraper cost them big at the worst possible time. And before I could even finish this sentence, my Lions got absolutely molested by the
Orange team
to seemingly end the Lions season before it even began. Well, on the bright side, Will Ashcroft is coming back. And also, what happened to Tom Doedee? He looked like he was on the road to recovery. We could sure use some backup. Oh, that's right, he re-tore his ACL literally days before he was supposed to debut for the club against Collingwood, because hell is no longer only a place accessible after death if you're a Lions supporter. So at this point, it seemed like Brisbane weren't getting back to the granny, let alone making finals. So the plan seemed to be to get through the season without any more major injuries, wrap Will Ashcroft in bubble wrap when he comes back, get some draft picks, and reset after a longer off-season for a big 2025. Sounds like a plan. And then literally the next game, we had 2 ACL injuries in one half of football. And now we've lost Lincoln McCarthy and Darcy Gardner as well, the latter of which may not be able to get back into the side. But hey, at least we beat the Gold Coast. Yay. If there's one good thing that came out of this horror run of injuries, it introduced the AFL world to Logan Morris, who debuted after playing VFL the exact same day with a stomach full of Maccas and wearing Will Ashcroft's boots, and, lest we forget, fan favourite Bruce Reville. A draw next week either saved the Lions 2 points or cost the Lions 2 points, depending on how you look at it. And, you know, things seem to be getting better for the Lions. They did a number on a hapless Richmond side, but unfortunately Brisbane's annual loss to Hawthorn came at the worst possible time, and it seemed like Brisbane couldn't get any consistent form at all. They got a second bye and took care of the doggies at Marvel, and then they fought off a hungry St Kilda outfit back at the Gabba. The next week, they travelled to Adelaide to face the Power, who were sitting 7th, celebrating the 20th anniversary of their 04 premiership, who they won against what remained of the three-peat Lions. It would be a tough ask for any team, let alone a team who had suffered 5 ACL injuries in a single year, still seemingly battling with the scars from last year's heartbreak. And never mind. I guess Hinkley's finally getting sacked this week. And it didn't end there. Brisbane won a thriller against Melbourne at the Gabba, featuring one of the most atrocious commentary performances I've ever had the misfortune of listening to in my entire life.
McCluggage has kicked the most important score.
An opportunity here for Fritsch. Fritsch to give them the win. Around the corner, misses.
And it carried on further. Brisbane took care of business against Adelaide, held off a hungry post-Simo sacking West Coast, and all of a sudden, Brisbane were playing game of the round against minor premiers Sydney after having gone from 13th place all the way up to 4th, and were riding a wave of 6 wins in a row. After some late heroics from Charlie Cameron and the arrival of Callum Archie, Brisbane made it 7. But hang on, Brisbane sustained some significant injuries in this game. Harris Andrews was concussed, Dara Joyce, who was brought in after the pain train derailed, broke his jaw, and that left Shadow Brain, of all people, having to play key defender. And they were facing Gold Coast, who were undefeated at home. Surely this Linsanity run would come to an end. Brisbane's corpse would be left dehydrated and rotting under the heat of the mighty sun. Except it wasn't. Despite having no backline, they found a way to win. They just kept winning, no matter what got thrown their way. They demolished St Kilda next week to make it 9 in a row. And the next week against the Giants, they were almost a lock to make it 10 in a row and almost secure a top 2 spot. Somehow, against all odds, maybe, just maybe, that shot at redemption was back, and oh dear. Oh dear. All is not lost though. Brisbane is up by 30 against a struggling Collingwood outfit at the MCG, and with results going their way, Brisbane can still make top 2 and
Beat them. Oh, those Collingwood Knights.
fuck. Brisbane capped off this roller coaster home and away season by spoiling Dyson Heppell's retirement party to finish 5th on the ladder. Not great, but not terrible. Brisbane ended the elimination final before it started against the corpse of Vossi's Blues, and somehow managed to make every Lions fan in attendance nervous as all hell, given recent events. But they did what they had to do. They travelled to Sydney to face the Giants, and by the halfway point of the third quarter, it seemed like the Giants were going to complete the sweep against Brisbane and progress to the preliminary final. It would take an act of God for Brisbane to keep their crazy season alive.
Kick looks all right. Joe Danaher standing up in the big moments. Taylor and Joe one-on-one, and Joe did him. The hardest defender in the game. They are Lion Hearts.
It turns out all it took was an act of Joe, and Will, and Zorko, and Kai, and an act of Faganism to pull off the equal second greatest comeback in AFL Finals history. And so, the Lions would meet Geelong at the MCG, and let's be frank, it looks bleak. Brisbane haven't beaten Geelong in Melbourne since 2004. The Lions' troubles with the MCG are well documented, and the Lions are sore, beaten down, and zapped of energy after 2 weeks of intense finals footy. We all know what happened the last time they were in this position. Most Lions fans, myself included, were content with it ending here. As long as the margin was respectable, it was a good effort to salvage a 0-3 start to the season and an impossible run of injuries. But the Lions weren't done quite yet.
Numbers around this one. Super important clearance. Will Astron, the young superstar. Eric gets it back to Rayner. Don't have a shot for goal to the left. Cam Rayner's got it. The Lions players erupt. Those that were here will never forget what they saw. Brisbane just had unfinished business to attend to at the MCG, and they will get their chance next week against the Sydney Swans.
And so here we are, somehow against every conceivable odd, after every conceivable variable went against us this year, the Brisbane Lions have made it back to the grand final in the highly anticipated rematch of the 1899 decider. If you told me after that Hawthorn loss we'd be here, I would have laughed in your face. Maybe it was the heartbreak of last year, maybe it was the hiring of the unlikely bulky hero Stewie Dew, perhaps it was Trent Cotchin. I can't put a finger on it, but somehow, someway, these Lions kept going, and when all seemed lost, time after time, they found a way to win, and now they get the chance to finish their story. I really don't know what will happen next week. We could get flogged by 120 points. We could win. And, you know, quite frankly, I don't care. What some may not understand is that when your team is in such a hopeless pit of hell for so long, you learn to savor any and all success that comes your way. I would have been wrapped with back-to-back grand finals in 2015, even if we lost both of them. Regardless of next week, I am so immensely proud of this team and these players. I speak for any Lions fan worth their salt when I say that these Lions will be remembered forever, regardless of what happens next week. When Brisbane was sitting 2-5, they coined the term, "If you're on thin ice, you may as well dance." Well, they're dancing, and I trust these boys. I believe in these boys. If Sydney wants to win this flag, it's going to take their very best.
Has it kept you awake at night? What happened last quarter last year?
Yeah, it's you know, you ride the bumps and bruises with every moment, but that one for me obviously stood out, and yeah, it's part of my footy journey, and it is what it is. But I'm a bigger person than just football, and my mum taught me about resilience, and I'm a resilient person. So yeah, we're back.
And also, here's my Swan supporting mate, Sharks Ray Footy, with his expert analysis of the upcoming matchup.
The Brisbane Lions are playing in a grand final against my fucking Swans, baby.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
Sharks Ray Sydney Swans get to finally deliver my GOAT, Dane Rampier premiership.
Love you. Oh.
Fuck Egg Footy, fuck Brisbane, and fuck that motherfucking... Damn, Matt Stevic. Subscribe to my channel. Fuck you. Just kidding, I love you. The Sharks Ray Egg Footy Cup is gonna be huge. Thanks for having me on, Egg. I wasn't kidding, bro. Subscribe to my channel.